Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the first episode of our podcast. Woo! We've been wanting to do this for a while, and we've been talking about it as our New Year's resolution for 2024. We are 3 months late, but we did it. And we're here. I think our podcast name, what is our podcast name? Do we not have one? Are we just going to roll with no podcast name for now?
Okay, so the thing about our podcast is we don't have set topics that we're going to talk about. We were just like, let's document the conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis. So it could be cute if we were just like, no podcast name. Just like to match the theme of like, no podcast topic.
No name podcast.
No name podcast.
Okay, wait, did we just come up with it right now?
No name podcast. Or like, do we like no podcast name or do we like no name podcast?
You let us know.
Oh God, we're doing a poll already.
We're doing a poll
So
for our
that
two
nobody,
viewers.
we're gonna
Julie,
be like,
let us know what you think. No name podcast, or what is it?
Julie.
No podcast name.
Julie. The poll is only for Julie.
Julie, Christian, and Danny, let us know what you think. Leave a comment down below.
Wait, okay, we're good at this. We're good at this. That's hilarious.
Okay. So, for our no podcast name, we wanted to do this for a while, and we finally got around to it, and I'm so excited because, little backstory, Morae and I have been best friends going on 2 decades now. We met in high school, and I love our conversations. I think anyone that knows Morae knows that the conversations that you're going to have with her is going to be some of the deepest and the most like meaningful conversations. And her and I talk.
Let's not put all the attention on me. Like I feel like this is a lot of attention on me for
Just relax.
For no
Just
reason.
relax. But they're the best conversations, and her and I are just completely different people. We have no similar interests. We have no favorite foods. We have the only thing that keeps us the same is that we're both from Florida. We're both Korean. I'm half. And that's
Are you
going to
share like the other half? I feel like you often don't.
I'm
You know what I
sorry,
mean?
Dad.
Like,
I'm also half Vietnamese.
I know for all of our Vietnamese fans out there, I feel like you
I'm
need to
sorry.
let them know.
I am half Korean, half Vietnamese. I'm just identifying with Korean right now because you're Korean.
I know, but I just feel like, you know.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm half Korean, half Vietnamese. Morae is full Korean. We've been best friends for almost 20 years. I love our conversations, and essentially we just honestly just wanted to document our chats and have something to look back on. So, yeah, we're super excited to do this, and we are so thankful to you guys for joining us. So,
Danny, Julie, and Christian, thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, I would also like to say we have really good conversations, but I think one thing that we're excited about is, like, you've been obviously doing YouTube for about a year, and you have so many, like, footage and, like, you know, videos and life events that you have documented. And I just realized, like, conversations are often things that we don't get to keep anywhere. You can take pictures, you can take videos, but, like, conversations with people are some of the most, like, transformative moments in your life. And, like, we don't often like get to document those moments.
I agree. You're
you
so
know?
right. Like with vlogs, I've been looking back at them like crazy from the past year, but
I have to burp. Okay, go.
let it out.
It already happened.
Okay. All right, so back to what we already went on our third tangent of the conversation.
You're going to see a lot of this.
Moral of the story, Morae and I feel like bring a lot of different views to the table. We are very different people. We see life very differently, but we hold a lot of the same values. So I think I'm really excited to do this and talk about some topics that we've been wanting to talk about in film. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All
Would you
right.
like to introduce the topic for today?
Absolutely. For this...
I'm cringing. Don't do that. Don't do that. I feel
What,
like...
don't look at you?
No, not looking at me, but like... You have like a podcast vibe right now. You know what I mean?
Okay,
or you have like a
fine. I'm
filming
turning
vibe.
on. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So moving to a new city in your 20s. I feel like this is first off, the easiest thing to talk about for both of us because we both have done it. And this is our first episode together. And there's just not a lot of pressure around it because this is such a real, current,
Recent.
like experience for both of us. And I think that I'm 29, turning 30 this year. Moray is,
28, turning 29 next month.
yeah, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
And I just feel like we are approaching the end of our 20s, and there's so much that we've learned with moving to a new city. And I think that it really shaped both of us into the people that we are today. And we've both been through hell and back in our 20s side by side with each other. And let's just talk about it. My whole life, I always thought I would end up in New York City. My family, all of my extended family lived in New York.
Wow,
My
that's so
mom.
true. You dreamed of New York.
Yeah. I was going to go to St. John's University. I had this like whole plan.
St. John's University. The most, can I say this? The most random college.
I know. It's because it was in
You're
New
like,
York.
it was my dream
I was
college.
like, I'm not going to get into NYU. So let me apply for St. John's
John's. I was
University.
like,
Like, nothing
where?
against that, but like, gotta set my expectations. But, so I set myself up for success.
Yeah,
But that didn't
I love that.
happen. I did not end up in New York. I actually visited Los Angeles with a friend at the time when I was 18 years old, right after I finished high school. We just wanted to come out here because LA seemed cool and we went on a little vacation. And this was June of 2014 is when I visited. And on that flight home back to Orlando, I told myself I was going to move here in 6 months. So I moved here when I was 20, did some back and forth. I actually ended up in New York for about a year when I was 23. Quickly ran back to LA because LA has my heart.
I feel like you are either a New York person or you're an LA person.
I agree.
Or you're neither and you hate both cities.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
agree.
because it's too much. But it's so funny because you're so right. Like, I remember you growing up, like, Orlando felt probably slow for the both of us. And, like, there was always more that you were, like, seeking. And I remember, like, oh, like, New York fits Alina's vibe. You know? Okay, I have to ask you. You, like, moved back from LA in, like, 2019, maybe it was?
Yeah, April 2019.
2019. And you decided to move to New York. Like, when you had the option to go back to LA. Like, why did you just wanted to try out something new? Like, what was the reason that you decided to go to New York versus back to LA?
So I guess I should give a little backstory as to why I moved
To
out
New
of
York.
LA.
Oh, yeah. We should start
Okay.
there for sure.
Okay. When I first moved to LA when I was 20, I met a boy shortly after, fell head over heels, and
As you do.
Yeah.
As you do.
Fell head over heels, and I was just so young and impressionable, I feel like, and fully lost myself in that relationship. And I started dating him, I think it was maybe like
2
three,
months.
4 months after moving to LA. All my friends kind of became his friends naturally.
Or
All of his
all of-
friends became my friends.
Yes.
All of his hobbies became my hobbies. All of his lifestyle became my lifestyle. Like everything was him. And he was older, and I
Like,
just
he had his life together and you, like, fit into it.
exactly.
You, like, molded around it.
Yeah, and his friends were great. I'm still friends with his friends,
I know. Yeah.
And it's hard, but the second that we broke up, I was like, I have nothing here. I moved to the city that I was in love with, and I have no identity here. And I'm so lost, so depressed. So I packed up my car and I moved back home to Orlando, Florida.
I feel like that's an experience that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, you know, because moving to a new city is so hard. You know, especially when you're young and you're still trying to figure yourself out, you know. You don't know anybody in the new city. It's so easy to find like a safe space
For
through
sure.
a relationship and then like mold into that person's life.
And I think that's the thing is like, I did that. And I remember like the first few months that I did live here and I wasn't dating him, I, was like, trying to make friends, and I'm definitely an extroverted introvert. So
Yeah,
even,
extroverted introvert.
yeah, and Maury can attest to this, but it's really hard for me to like go out of my way and make friends. I'm not the type of person like I like to like
You're
naturally.
weird though. Like are you are but you're not. If you're introduced into a group,
Yeah,
then you're friends with everybody.
right.
You know, like you will go out of your way to like mingle and like chat, you know what I mean? But like I feel like you rely a lot on like introductions and like natural connections.
Yeah, for sure. I'm never going to be one to go out of my way and be like, "Hi, I'm Alina.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, let's
definitely.
hang out." That's just not like me, but when you move to a brand new city, you
Meanwhile,
kind of
I'm on like Bumble BFFs trying to like meet people from, it doesn't make sense to say meet people from scratch. Like,
yeah, meet
meet
people
people
from
from scratch,
scratch.
literally.
Yeah.
Like,
Completely different friend groups. They don't know anything about you. Like, to me, all of that sounds exhausting, even when I was
I don't know
20.
why. I just think it's so fun. I want to like meet different personality types and like, I think or like meeting organically or like meeting through friends, like there's a higher chance that you're going to meet similar types of people, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think there was an excitement and like a desire to like be exposed to different like people who think differently or who have different hobbies and like
Yeah,
interests, you
yeah.
know?
I get
So,
that. I don't get that. I get that and I understand it, but this once again makes you and I so different
yeah.
because it's like to me that unfamiliarity is scary and risky. Even though you can just be like, deuces, I don't like, we're not cool, and like,
Yeah.
there's no strings attached. And I probably get myself into stickier situations because there's 20 strings attached to every person that I meet, you know? But yeah, it's
Friend dating is
interesting.
weird.
Friend dating is
Yeah, friend
weird.
dating is weird.
Yeah. But yeah,
It's not for everybody.
for sure. And I think back in, what was it, 2015, Bumble BFF wasn't a thing, you know?
That's
So
true.
it's
You're
like,
so right.
you know, at the time when I moved here, I had a total of two friends. So, and one of them was my roommate, which was great because she had so many friends and she was already established here
Yeah.
and she was great and she introduced me to all of her friends. And I think that's the thing is like, that was really uncomfortable for me, putting myself out there and like trying to connect with people, which, you know, was just a completely different circle, I think, of like who I was. And I think once I started working in hospitality and met people that were like, there was a lot more similarities, it just became easier. And coming from Orlando, where there's not a lot of diversity, it was the first time I was fully submerged,
Yeah.
like in a
Yeah.
safe space,
Yeah.
like fully submerged with my own culture and an Asian community. Okay, so yeah, going back to fourth tangent of our conversation, but
We have good
this is
content though.
like, but
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
our
good.
life. Like this is like lower your expectations. This is how our conversations
We have no
go.
agenda.
Zero. We just know the topic, so we'll get back to the topic. But yeah, when I moved back home, spent a few months more. I was there. It felt like home. I was healing. I felt good. Got to be with my besties, with my family. Took a few months off because I'm a serial dater, and I ended up with my now husband.
That is a whole like other podcast topic.
Yeah. Anyways, uh, long story short, he went to New York for a job opportunity. I slowly followed, which kind of was the best decision ever because I got to spend 2 months with my grandpa before he passed away.
Slowly followed.
It was 3 months.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
No way.
Yeah, it was 3 months.
Why did I think you left like 2 weeks later?
Christian left in May. I left in August.
Huh.
Yeah, give me some credit.
3 months. No, I'm impressed.
That hustle and bustle is just not for me. I remember walking into a wind tunnel at 1 a.m. because I had to run to Penn Station after working at a restaurant, running against like -8 wind tunnel.
Yeah.
And I was like,
No, it's
why
too much.
am I doing this?
I feel like me and you both deteriorate in like if it's like slightly windy or slightly cold. Okay, basically anything that's not like 85 and sunny, like we deteriorate.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
true. It's just not meant for me.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of like which movie was it? The Harry Potter movie where Voldemort's like this in the white like thing. That's like you and I when we're in gloomy cold weather.
I literally call you every time it rains in LA and I'm like, something's wrong with me. Like
I'm not okay.
I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So that was it. And then I just came over here with my tax refund, April of 2019, of like $2,000. And ever since then, have established my life here. Yeah, so that's
I
my
love that.
backstory. Thanks. Your turn.
Nice. Okay. So my like moving story is pretty crazy. Like I've moved every year, essentially I move to a new city. So I'll just kind of recap and say I've lived in 4 or 5 different cities in the past like 6 years.
Crazy.
I know. I think it's because ever since I visited LA, like visited you and Esther in LA, I was so excited by the fact that there was a place in the world that like made me feel as like excited and like hopeful for my future.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was in school and, after grad school, I followed my job. And I always had like the excitement that I felt when I first came to LA in mind when I moved to these new cities. As much as I had like a great experience in like, Seattle and DC and, even St. Louis, in the back of my mind, it just wasn't LA. I went into these cities like thinking that it was going to give me the same excitement LA gave me, but it didn't.
So you were
So
like
I kept
chasing that.
bouncing. Yeah, I was like chasing that feeling and I was like bouncing around.
Yeah.
And honestly, I regret it a little bit in that like I was always like dreaming for more instead
Okay.
of like really being present in
Yeah.
one place.
Yeah.
Because you know me, like when I was in Seattle, when I was in DC, I was always like planning for my move to
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah.
So in one sense, like I'm so, so grateful to be here now. I moved to LA about 2 years ago now, upcoming 2 years. I don't know. I think about like all of the different cities that I've lived in, but moving to LA was the first time that I felt like I was moving in and settling into a city for the first time. Like all of these things like making new friends and like really trying to build like a home in a place. Like 2 years ago was probably the first time.
Really.
Everywhere else felt really transient to me. Like
DC too?
okay, so little backstory. I was living in Seattle. My ex at the time had gotten a job offer in New York. And to kind of bridge the gap, my previous company had like an HQ2 in DC. So I decided to make that jump.
Headquarters.
What did I
Is that
say?
what HQ2 is?
Headquarters, second headquarters, yeah. I'm so
She's like,
tech
you're
bro.
such a corporate
I know,
gal.
I hate it. I hate it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's because like it wasn't a city that I like was really excited to move to. It wasn't
Yeah.
one that I had like had like an intention to move to.
Yeah.
It did feel a little transient.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just different. I think by that point I was like in my like mid to late 20s and I was like excited to like settle down somewhere. And so I knew in the next like 1 to 2 years like I wanted to eventually make my way to LA.
Yeah.
Fast forward when my ex and I broke up, like within a blink of an eye, sublet my apartment and bought a one-way to LA.
She frolicked over
I
here.
frolicked over, moved out to LA when I was 27 and kind of felt like I started my life,
Yeah.
like my adult
Like you
life.
officially started your life.
Yeah. As exhilarating as it was to finally be somewhere that I had always dreamed of, like it was hard. By the time that I got here, I was 27 and I think this could be kind of a relatable experience. Like a lot of people around me when I was trying to make new friends, like it felt like people were really settled into their lives.
Already?
A little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. There was a
Okay.
lot of people around me that were in like very serious relationships
Yeah.
or, very consumed with their like work
Yeah.
or already had like a very established group of friends,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
I also feel like LA is a really hard place to make new friends.
Yeah, maybe, which is
On top of it.
crazy, right? Because it is such like a young, like transient city.
Yeah.
And so I was expecting making friends to be a lot easier here.
Yeah. And I do think that your experience of coming to LA in your late 20s versus 20 is very different. You know, people are
Yeah.
more willing to like make friends and like get to know people, whether if they have red flags or not at 20, you know,
Like, what
versus
are
at
red flags at
27.
20? You know what I mean? Like, yes, there are
Exactly.
red flags, but it's like you're also probably somewhat of a
Red
walking red
walking.
flag.
I was for
You
sure a
know?
walking red
Like,
flag. Yeah. I think that when you're 20, moving to a new city like Los Angeles, you know nothing, you know? And it's like, there's parts of me that,
are you gonna cry? Oh,
no, I'm
okay.
thinking.
I saw a twinkle in her eyes, so I was like, and Alina does this sometimes. Like all of a sudden, we're just laughing, chatting casually, like talking about stupid things, and then she'll start crying in the corner, and I'm like,
I'm a baby.
what's going on?
I've seen Maury cry like twice in the past 20
Have you
years.
seen me cry twice?
You teared up at my wedding.
I think that was an act. That that was a little try to get the crowd going. You know what I mean? I saw. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, go.
Okay, there's parts of me that regret moving to California so early.
Really?
I think
You've never expressed that to me.
I haven't. And I mean, you know this. I don't have a college degree. And I
Which
think
is fine.
it's totally fine, but I wish I had a college degree. I mean, I know that like there's
Do you
so
wish you had
many.
a college degree, or do you like wish you had a traditional college
Absolutely not.
experience?
I do
Okay,
not.
so
I
it's the
like
degree
it's not the
aspect.
college experience because I feel like I experienced that college experience moving to LA at 20. You
Yeah,
know, like
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
partied so much. I like made so many different friends. Like, you know, I'm sure it wasn't to the extent of yours with like Greek life and all of that, but there like that chaos, I feel like I experienced that.
Yeah.
But when I was living in Florida, I had a home where I didn't have to pay rent, you know? I didn't have like things to worry about, but obviously moving out here, I immediately had to go get a job because it's LA and it's expensive. So work, go to school part time, figure all that out, and then get thrown in with like partying and
Yeah.
everything. You just like live that life for like 5 years, and next thing you know,
You're 27.
and now you have to like work because you have to like, you have life, you're an adult. Do I think it's too late? No. But do I wish that I would have maybe stayed home for a year or two longer and just finished my degree like my dad told me to? Yes. You
Yeah.
know, but I know it's like,
I get what you're saying, but I just feel like establishing yourself and like being in the career that like you've wanted to be in, like you have that regardless of if you have a college degree or not.
yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, like I think it shaped me into who I was moving here so young. I grew up
You've
really
grown. Yeah,
fast.
exactly. I was just
But
about to say that. Like you, just because you weren't in a career, you know, up until like 25 or whatever, which is very reasonable still.
yeah.
Like you did so much growing, just moving out here by yourself, building the community that you like had from the ground up,
Yeah.
you know, figuring out like what you like, what you don't like, relationships, like romantic and friendship. I feel like you grew such a strong sense of self
Through that
through
experience.
that experience.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's always like you want what you can't have, you know,
Yeah.
or like whatever that is. Cause it's like you have the degree, you know, you moved to LA when you were 27, but you have the degree, you have a stable like career, you know, like you have all of those things that staying home for a little longer and getting your college degree was able to, you know, like get you to this point. And I think that like of course it's just you always want what you can't have. And I think
Yeah.
like in that aspect it's interesting.
It's so true. Like you always want what you don't have because I look at your experience and I'm like, wow, I'm so envious of Alina for starting her life, you know, at 20. I wasn't able to like start living my life until I was 27 when I moved to LA because for the first time I moved to a place where I saw like a long-term future. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That's so crazy.
It's so
Isn't that
crazy,
so
right?
funny?
And I feel like there's a lot of learning you do in college. Obviously, I've met some of my like absolute best friends from like through college,
Yeah.
but college is a bubble.
Yeah.
College
It's
is
their
not
own world.
real life.
Yeah.
It's such a bubble and like that's why when I see me and you, even though like you didn't have that traditional college experience, you don't have a degree, which to me doesn't mean that much. I look at you and I'm like, you are such a grown up. That's how I see you.
Interesting.
And I feel like college, you don't get the learnings that you do in the real world.
I do see the value of having it. And I think for me, because I don't have it, people having their degree is adulting. Yeah.
For me, people knowing how to do their taxes is adult for me. And God knows that tax season is the bane of my existence.
Okay, question for you.
Okay.
If you could go back in time, would you have done anything differently?
I lived in DC for literally like 3 months, but it
Yeah.
was such a special time in my adulthood where I could live with my like 2 college best friends
Yeah.
in the same city.
Yeah.
You know, like I realize I'm not going to get that chance back.
Yeah.
So I don't have regrets, but if I were to like nitpick at one thing I would have done differently, maybe I would have considered moving to LA like after I quit OT school.
Okay. So I guess like the last thing I wanted to talk about was,
Maybe why LA felt so impactful for us,
yeah.
like based off of our upbringing in like
Yeah.
a small town in Orlando.
Yeah. Quick summary. Morae and I both grew up in an Asian church, in a Korean church, but both grew up in a predominantly white high school.
Neighborhood.
Yeah. And I think for me personally, it was really hard to love my high school friends, but there was just a level of like connection that was a little bit harder just because cultures are different, right? And I
Yeah.
think like,
It's like a bicultural thing. Like
Yeah.
you're so American and like that part of you connects with like your high school friends, you know, going to, you know, football games and like everything that happens in high school. But then you go home and you have this whole other life that I feel like, you know, if you're not second generation Asian American,
yeah,
like you wouldn't connect to.
yeah,
At least for me, the reason why LA felt so impactful when I visited was because of the people.
yeah, for sure. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, there was just a layer of diversity here. You know, not just Asian Americans, but like there's so many different cultures that you could fit into.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't, for one, you didn't have to be Christian to be a part of a Korean American community.
Yeah. Which was crazy because that was like the only way to like have that when we were in Orlando.
Exactly. The only way that you could connect with and get in touch with your Korean culture was once or twice a week. Like when you would go
Yeah.
to Friday night, what do you call it? Friday night live?
Church.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't
Yeah,
it like
it was,
Friday
like,
night youth
something
group
like
or
that.
like or
Yeah.
like Sunday at church?
Yeah.
You know, whereas
But those were exciting because like in a weird way we were able to be authentically ourselves in terms of our culture, but like I personally had to turn something on, you know? Cuz that still was like an uncomfortable space for me because it was relating to not my high school like non-minority friends to then like
yeah, and I think that there was just I think it's okay for us to say that there was a level of shame that we had like
Yeah.
for being Korean
Yeah.
or Asian
yeah.
amongst our like high school community
Yeah.
because
exactly.
we were such a minority.
Yeah.
You know, like it was so easy for people to, you know, now it would be horrific and so not PC, but like we would have such like racist
Yeah.
nicknames
Yeah.
and like we didn't think twice about it, but subconsciously like that sent a message that was telling us like being Asian means that like we get made fun of.
Right.
So
Exactly. Automatically.
the less that we like identify or like expose our culture, the less we'll be made fun of and like the more we'll blend in.
Yeah.
I
for
think
sure.
as a kid, like that's the message that like gets ingrained in you. And I'm sure for you too, me as well. Like when I came out to LA, it was the first time that I felt like free to be authentically me, you know, because I wasn't hiding 50% of who I was.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and that level of like peace and freedom surpasses, you know, 20 years that you're physically in a place
Yeah.
where you're hiding 50% of who you are.
Yeah. And I think that's like the beauty of LA and the biggest thing for me, at least, in terms of why I love this city so much. It's like certain parts of like Florida, you go into a grocery store and you kind of get looked at because you're Asian, you know?
Yeah,
I still experienced
100%.
that like not too long ago.
God forbid a guy likes you and he's not Asian, then it's like, oh, he has yellow fever. So not PC.
Oh, the best. You're cute for an Asian.
You're cute for an Asian. Or like, oh my God, you look like Pocahontas. And like, to be fair, in LA, we still get that from time to time.
Time to time, but we're shocked. You know?
We're
It's
shocked.
like
Whereas back then, it was like we accepted it. And like,
every day. Yeah.
if we made a big deal out of it, then like we would be dramatic or we
Yeah.
would be like crazy or weird. We just kind of had to like, what's the phrase? Take it to the chin,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
Like we've had our
crazy.
fair share of like crazy names. Like I was called like lo mein in like middle school.
Yeah. Someone threw soy sauce at my head one time at school.
Horrible.
I'm so happy life brought us here. I think we were meant to be here, whether if it's forever or not. Like, I think at this time in our lives, in our 20s, growing, learning who we are, embracing our culture. But yeah. Anyways.
I think that's a wrap. I think that was a good kind of close to our conversation. I don't think that we stuck with the topic necessarily,
this
but
one
I think
is a good life in our 20s.
life in our
With
20s
kind of
just
what it's
like a
like
little
moving in
chat.
a new city
Yeah.
and moving to LA. Thank you, Julie, Christian, and Danny for watching.
For tuning in.
Yeah, you guys are the best. And
For the people that don't know Julie, Christian, and Danny,
you're missing out.
you're missing out, and you'll probably meet them at some point on this podcast.
That's true. But please vote for...
Should we introduce who Christian, Danny, and Julie are?
Yeah, probably because we've said their names
I
20
know,
times through this
literally.
podcast. Christian's my husband.
And
Love
Danny
you.
is my boyfriend, and Julie is one of my best friends.
Yep. Well, please vote below what our podcast name should be. What do we say? No name podcast
No
or
name
no
podcast or no podcast name. Or if you have better suggestions, comment below.
Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys the next time we post another episode.
See ya.
Bye.